In the heart of Washington, D.C., where power is both wielded and whispered, a storm quietly brews behind the polished doors of the White House. This is not a tale of grand speeches or sweeping policy victories. Instead, it is a story of fractured alliances, whispered betrayals, and the raw, unvarnished personalities that shape the corridors of American power. At the center of this unfolding drama stands Susie Wiles, a figure as enigmatic as she is influential. The first woman to hold the office of White House Chief of Staff under President Donald Trump's second term. Wiles is no stranger to the political battlefield. Rise to the pinnacle of the Trump administration was forged in the crucible of relentless campaigns and high-stakes fundraising. She was the architect behind Trump's 2016 Florida campaign, the driving force behind the Save America fundraising juggernaut, and now, the steady hand guiding the White House through turbulent waters. But beneath the veneer of political success lies a complex portrait, one that challenges the very narrative of loyalty and leadership within the Trump orbit. In a recent explosive Vanity Fair interview, Wiles peeled back the curtain on the inner workings of the administration, offering candid, sometimes scathing insights into the personalities that define it. Her words painted a picture of chaos and contradiction, of a White House where ambition and retribution intertwine, and where the line between ally and adversary is often blurred. Central to her revelations was a striking characterization of President Trump himself. Wiles described him as possessing an alcoholic's personality, a phrase loaded with implication and nuance. It is not a comment on substance abuse, for Trump does not drink. Rather, it is an observation about temperament, the relentless drive, the unyielding confidence, the belief that there's nothing he can't do. This is a man who governs with the intensity of someone who sees the world in extremes, who demands absolute loyalty and expects the impossible to be made possible. Wiles' own background offers a window into how she came to understand such a personality. Raised by an alcoholic father, she spoke of high-functioning alcoholics whose traits become magnified under the influence, a lens through which she views Trump's larger-than-life persona. It is a psychological insight that adds depth to the public image of a president often dismissed as brash or impulsive. Here we see a strategist who recognizes the complexities beneath the surface, who has learned to navigate the volatile currents of power with a mixture of pragmatism and resilience. But the president was not the only figure to come under scrutiny. Vice President JD Vance, once a vocal critic of Trump, emerged in Wiles' account as a man transformed, a conspiracy theorist turned loyalist, whose political evolution was, in her words, sort of political. Vance's journey from skeptic to supporter reflects the shifting allegiances that define the current political landscape, where ideology often bends to expediency and where the boundaries of truth and fiction are increasingly contested. Vance himself responded to the Vanity Fair piece with characteristic defiance, dismissing the label of conspiracy theorist while asserting his belief in conspiracy theories that are true. He cited concerns about President Joe Biden's health as an example, underscoring the deep partisan divides and the weaponization of information that now permeate American politics. Perhaps most striking were Wiles' comments on Elon Musk, the tech billionaire whose brief tenure leading the Department of Government Efficiency, colloquially known as DOGE, ended in acrimony and public spats with the president. Wiles described Musk as an avowed ketamine user who sleeps in a sleeping bag in the executive office building, a vivid image that captures the eccentricity and unpredictability of one of the most controversial figures in modern American business and politics. Her reflections on Musk's cost-cutting crusade reveal the fundamental tension within the administration, the clash between rapid disruptive change and the slow, often cumbersome machinery of government. Wiles admitted to being initially aghast at the proposed gutting of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, an institution she believed did very good work. Yet she acknowledged Musk's philosophy that to achieve monumental goals, one must break some china along the way. It is a stark reminder of the competing visions for America's future, where innovation and tradition collide in a high-stakes contest for control. The fallout from the Vanity Fair article was swift and fierce. Within hours of its publication, Wiles took to X, formerly Twitter, to denounce the piece as a disingenuously framed hit job, accusing the magazine of ignoring significant context and crafting an overwhelmingly chaotic and negative narrative about the president and his team. Her defense was echoed by the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who praised Wiles as a steady leader and a loyal advisor instrumental in what she called the most successful first 11 months in office of any president in American history. Leavitt went further, accusing Vanity Fair of bias of omission and taking Wiles' words wildly out of context, a charge that highlights the ongoing battle over narrative control in an era where media and politics are inextricably intertwined. President Trump himself weighed in, defending Wiles as fantastic and suggesting she had been deceived by the journalist. He also noted that her comments about his personality echoed his own self-assessments, a rare moment of alignment between public persona and private counsel. Yet, beneath the surface of these public statements lies a deeper, more troubling reality. The Trump White House, once a symbol of unyielding strength and unity, now reveals fractures that threaten to undermine its cohesion. The interplay of personalities, from the driven chief of staff to the mercurial president, the ideologically fluid vice president, and the mercurial tech mogul, creates a volatile mix that defies easy categorization. This is a story not just about individuals, but about the nature of power itself in the 21st century. It is a tale of ambition and loyalty, of truth and deception, of the relentless pursuit of influence in a world where the rules are constantly being rewritten. While, as the political landscape shifts beneath their feet, the players in this drama must navigate a labyrinth of competing interests and hidden agendas. The stakes are nothing less than the future of American governance and the fragile trust that underpins it. In the chapters that follow, we will delve deeper into the forces shaping this administration, the strategic calculations, the personal vendettas, and the ideological battles that define the Trump White House today. We will explore the implications of Wiles' revelations, the responses from those caught in the crossfire, and the broader geopolitical context that frames this unfolding saga. Beneath the gleaming facade of the White House lies a complex ecosystem of power, a network of alliances, rivalries, and shifting loyalties that shape the very course of American governance. In this second chapter of our investigation, we peel back the layers of this intricate web, revealing how personal ambition and political calculation collide in a high-stakes game where trust is scarce and retribution is a constant undercurrent. Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff, occupies a unique position at the heart of this maelstrom. Her rise to power was not accidental. It was the result of decades spent navigating the treacherous waters of Republican politics, mastering the art of campaign strategy, and building a formidable fundraising machine. Yet her role extends far beyond the traditional confines of a chief of staff. She is a gatekeeper, a strategist, and, as her recent revelations suggest, a keen observer of the darker impulses that drive the administration. One of the most striking admissions from Wiles was her acknowledgement of the role retribution plays in President Trump's approach to governance. "I don't think he wakes up thinking about retribution," she said, "but when there's an opportunity, he will go for it." This candid confession exposes a fundamental truth about the administration's modus operandi, a readiness to wield the machinery of the state as a weapon against political adversaries and perceived enemies. This is not mere speculation. Throughout Trump's political career, the pursuit of retribution has been a recurring theme. From legal battles against rivals to public denunciations of dissenters, the administration has demonstrated a willingness to blur the lines between justice and vengeance. Wiles' comments provide an insider's confirmation of this dynamic, revealing how personal grievances and political strategy intertwine in the corridors of power. The implications of this approach are profound. When the instruments of government become tools of retribution, the very foundations of democratic governance are at risk. The impartiality of institutions is compromised, and the rule of law becomes subordinate to the whims of those in power. This erosion of norms threatens not only the administration's legitimacy, but the stability of the political system itself. Within this volatile environment, loyalty is both prized and precarious. Vice President JD Vance's transformation from a vocal critic to a close ally exemplifies the fluidity of allegiance in the Trump era. Wiles described Vance as having been a conspiracy theorist for a decade, a label that underscores the ideological shifts and strategic recalibrations that define contemporary politics. Vance's own response to these characterizations was telling. While rejecting the broad brush of conspiracy theorist, he asserted his belief in conspiracy theories that are true, citing concerns about President Joe Biden's health as an example. This statement highlights a broader phenomenon: the selective embrace of alternative narratives that serve political ends, regardless of their veracity. The rise of such narratives has profound consequences for public discourse and political polarization. When truth becomes malleable and facts are subordinated to ideology, the space for reasoned debate shrinks. The result is a fractured polity, where trust in institutions erodes and the social fabric frays. Amidst these shifting allegiances and ideological battles, the figure of Elon Musk looms large. His brief tenure leading the Department of Government Efficiency, a bold experiment in applying Silicon Valley principles to federal bureaucracy, was marked by controversy and conflict. Wiles' depiction of Musk as an avowed ketamine user who sleeps in a sleeping bag in the executive office building paints a portrait of eccentricity and unpredictability. Musk's approach to government reform was unapologetically disruptive. His philosophy that rapid radical change is necessary to achieve monumental goals clashed with the incrementalism that characterizes much of the federal apparatus. Wiles admitted to being initially aghast at Musk's proposal to gut the U.S. Agency for International Development, an institution she believed performed valuable work. Yet she also acknowledged the limitations of the status quo. No rational person could think the USAID process was a good one, she said. Musk's impatience with bureaucracy reflects a broader tension in American governance, the challenge of balancing innovation and efficiency with accountability and tradition. The public spat between Musk and Trump following Musk's departure from the administration further exposed the fragility of alliances within the White House. What began as a partnership aimed at streamlining government quickly devolved into a war of words on social media, underscoring the personal and ideological fault lines that run through the administration. In the wake of the Vanity Fair article, the White House's response was swift and coordinated. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended Wiles as a steady leader and a loyal advisor, emphasizing her role in what the administration touts as unprecedented success. Leavitt accused the magazine of bias of omission and taking Wiles' words wildly out of context, a charge that speaks to the ongoing struggle over narrative control in an era of fragmented media. President Trump's own defense of Wiles was equally telling, calling her fantastic and suggesting she had been deceived by the journalist. Trump sought to contain the fallout and reaffirm his confidence in his chief of staff. His remark that Wiles' comments about his personality mirrored his own self-assessments offered a rare glimpse of alignment between public image and private counsel. Yet, beneath these public affirmations lies a deeper unease. The administration's internal dynamics reveal a fragile coalition, held together by personal loyalty and political expediency rather than shared vision or ideology. The tensions exposed by Wiles' revelations suggest that the White House is a battleground where competing ambitions and conflicting agendas vie for dominance. This internal discord has significant implications for governance and policymaking. When the focus shifts from collective purpose to individual survival, the capacity for coherent strategy diminishes. The result is a government that is reactive rather than proactive, driven by crisis management and personal vendettas rather than long-term planning. Moreover, the administration's approach to information and truth, characterized by selective narratives and the weaponization of conspiracy theories, exacerbates divisions within American society. In a time of profound geopolitical challenges, this internal fragmentation undermines the country's ability to present a united front on the world stage. As we continue to explore the Trump White House, it becomes clear that the story is not just about personalities or politics. It is about the very nature of power in a democracy under strain. It is about how leaders navigate the delicate balance between authority and accountability, between ambition and responsibility. In the shadowed halls of power, where political ambition meets the machinery of justice, a new and troubling chapter unfolds. The Trump White House, as revealed through the candid admissions of Susie Wiles and corroborated by multiple sources, has embraced a strategy that blurs the line between governance and vendetta. This is a story of legal battles waged not merely in courtrooms, but as instruments of political retribution, a calculated use of the law to punish adversaries and consolidate power. Wiles herself acknowledged the presence of an element of retribution in President Trump's pursuit of criminal cases against political rivals and perceived enemies. "I don't think he wakes up thinking about retribution," she said, "but when there's an opportunity, he will go for it." This admission is more than a glimpse into the president's mindset. It is a window into a broader strategy that has profound implications for the integrity of American democracy. The use of legal mechanisms as political weapons is not unprecedented in history, but the scale and brazenness of these efforts under the Trump administration mark a significant departure from established norms. The pursuit of justice, ideally impartial and blind to political considerations, has become entangled with the pursuit of power and personal vendetta. One of the most contentious issues raised in the Vanity Fair interviews was the handling of sensitive files related to Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier whose connections to powerful figures have long been shrouded in secrecy. Wiles' comments hinted at the administration's involvement in managing these files, raising questions about transparency and accountability. The Epstein files represent more than just a trove of documents. They symbolize the intersection of wealth, influence, and impunity. How these files are handled, who controls access, what information is released or withheld speaks volumes about the administration's approach to justice and the rule of law. Beyond Epstein, the administration's legal offenses have targeted a wide array of political opponents, from former officials to media figures. These efforts have been characterized by aggressive investigations, public accusations, and a willingness to leverage federal agencies in ways that critics argue undermine the independence of the judiciary and law enforcement. The consequences of this approach are far-reaching. When legal institutions become tools of political warfare, public trust erodes. Citizens begin to question whether justice is truly blind or merely another weapon in the arsenal of those in power. This skepticism threatens the very foundations of democratic governance, where the rule of law is supposed to serve as a check on executive authority. Wiles' role in this dynamic is complex. As chief of staff, she is both a participant in and a witness to these strategies. Her frankness about the administration's motivations, acknowledging the interplay of politics and retribution, offers a rare insider perspective on a process often hidden from public view. Yet, her revelations also raise difficult questions about accountability. If the pursuit of political advantage justifies the use of legal power, where is the line drawn? How can democratic institutions safeguard themselves against becoming instruments of partisan conflict? The administration's approach to legal battles is further complicated by the personalities involved. President Trump's own history of litigiousness and public feuds sets a tone that permeates the White House. His willingness to publicly attack judges, prosecutors, and critics creates an environment where legal processes are politicized and weaponized. Vice President JD Vance's evolution from skeptic to loyalist also plays into this narrative. His embrace of conspiracy theories, or as he puts it, conspiracy theories that are true, reflects a broader trend of undermining established facts and institutions. This mindset fuels a political culture where legal accusations are often dismissed or embraced based on partisan allegiance rather than evidence. The administration's legal strategies are not confined to domestic politics. They reverberate on the international stage, affecting America's credibility and its relationships with allies. When the rule of law appears compromised at home, it weakens the country's moral authority abroad, emboldening adversaries and unsettling partners. Amidst this turbulent landscape, the media plays a critical role. Investigative journalism, such as the Vanity Fair exposé, shines a light on these hidden dynamics, holding power to account. Yet, the administration's response accusing the press of bias, omission, and distortion exemplifies the ongoing battle over narrative control. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt's defense of Wiles and the administration underscores the stakes involved. By framing the Vanity Fair article as a disingenuously framed hit piece, the White House seeks to delegitimize critical scrutiny and rally its base. This tactic, while politically effective, further polarizes public discourse and deepens mistrust. As we examine the legal and ethical battlegrounds of the Trump White House, it becomes clear that the struggle is not merely about individual cases or personalities. It is about the health of American democracy itself, about whether institutions can withstand the pressures of politicization and maintain their independence. The revelations from Susie Wiles and others offer a sobering reminder of the fragility of democratic norms. They challenge us to consider how power should be exercised and constrained, and what safeguards are necessary to protect the rule of law from becoming a casualty of political conflict. As the internal fissures within the Trump White House deepen, their impact extends far beyond the marble halls of Washington. The turbulence inside America's seat of power sends ripples across the global geopolitical landscape, challenging long-standing alliances, emboldening adversaries, and reshaping the strategic calculus of nations around the world. In this final chapter, we explore how the administration's internal dynamics influence America's foreign policy, its global standing, and the fragile balance of international order. The United States has long been regarded as the linchpin of the post-World War IRSSI international system, a beacon of democratic values, a guarantor of security, and a driver of global economic stability. Yet the Trump administration's approach, marked by unpredictability, internal discord, and a transactional view of alliances, has unsettled this role. The revelations from Susie Wiles and others expose a White House preoccupied with internal power struggles and political retribution, raising urgent questions about America's capacity to lead on the world stage. One of the most immediate consequences of this internal chaos is the erosion of trust among America's allies. Traditional partners in Europe, Asia, and beyond have watched with growing concern as the administration's messaging shifts erratically, policies are reversed without warning, and diplomatic norms are sidelined. The perception of a White House consumed by factional battles and personality clashes undermines confidence in America's commitments. This uncertainty has strategic consequences. Adversaries such as Russia and China have seized upon the apparent disarray, advancing their own agendas with greater boldness. Russia's continued aggression in Eastern Europe and China's assertive moves in the South China Sea and beyond are emboldened by the sense that the United States is distracted, divided, and less willing to engage decisively. Moreover, the administration's internal focus on retribution and political survival diverts attention and resources from pressing global challenges. Climate change, pandemics, nuclear proliferation, and cyber threats demand coordinated international responses, yet the White House's preoccupation with internal power dynamics hampers its ability to lead effectively. The handling of foreign aid and international development, as highlighted by Wiles' criticism of Elon Musk's cost-cutting efforts at USAID, further illustrates this tension. The gutting of institutions designed to promote stability and development abroad signals a retreat from America's traditional role as a global partner and stabilizer. This retrenchment creates vacuums that rival powers are eager to fill, reshaping spheres of influence in ways that may not align with U.S. interests or values. At the same time, the administration's embrace of conspiracy theories and selective narratives, as seen in Vice President JD Vance's comments, complicates diplomatic engagement. When leaders publicly endorse unverified or politically convenient claims, it undermines the credibility necessary for effective negotiation and alliance building. Yet, amid these challenges, there are moments of resilience and adaptation. Career diplomats, military leaders, and civil servants continue to work tirelessly to uphold America's interests and values, often navigating around the turbulence emanating from the top. The broader American political system, with its checks and balances, independent judiciary, and vibrant civil society, remains a bulwark against the excesses of any single administration. The question that looms large is what comes next. The internal struggles within the Trump White House, as laid bare by Susie Wiles and others, are symptomatic of deeper tensions within American politics and society. The polarization, the erosion of trust in institutions, and the weaponization of information are challenges that transcend any one administration. For the United States to reclaim its role as a global leader, it must first address these internal fractures. Restoring faith in democratic norms, reinforcing the independence of institutions, and fostering a political culture grounded in truth and accountability are essential steps. The revelations from this investigation serve as a stark reminder of the costs when power is wielded without restraint and when personal ambition eclipses collective responsibility. They compel us to reflect on the fragile nature of democracy and the vigilance required to preserve it. As the world watches, the United States stands at a crossroads. The path forward will demand courage, wisdom, and a recommitment to the principles that have long defined the nation. The stakes could not be higher for America and for the global order it helped create.